And we couldn't be happier to partner with you all at Sleep Number. You guys are doing great things. We're all about unlocking possibilities for ambitious brands. And watch Sleep Number. They're ambitious as hell. You'll see great things coming. More great things down the road. All right, so we are coming to the close of an awesome day. And so I would like to bring to the stage next a chat around media and entertainment. Is there Mr. Todd Cohen in the room? All right, Mr. Todd Cohen, the Vice President of National Video, CTV Sales and Strategy for Undertone. Welcome him to the stage, please. As well as Scott Harkey, CEO of the Harkey Group. Come on back. And lastly, but not the least of which, is my dear friend and the moderator for this panel, Miss Kimberly Wilson, the SVP of SiriusXM and Pandora. Welcome to the stage. All right, let's make sure all your mics work.
Y'all catch these kicks, though.
Yeah, they're very nice. I thought I had the dopest Nikes on. Wrong.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, Kim.
Meeting.
I know.
All right. I am Kimberly Wilson, the Senior Vice President of Marketing for SiriusXM and Pandora. I've been there about a year and a half, but spent most of my career at ESPN. So I'm going to hand it over to you all to introduce yourself, but this panel is really about trends, what we're seeing, what we're not seeing, what we need to watch out for in media, sports, and entertainment.
Is it happy hour yet? Last one, guys.
Hang in there.
You want to go ahead, Todd, first? Or?
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Todd Cohen. I'm at Undertone. I actually started my career in sports marketing, so this is really exciting to be on stage for a sports marketing conference. I used to work for in arena football on the team side and NBC Sports, and then shifted over to the media side, but still sports with Fox and NFL doing that there, and the New York Football Giants radio network, New York Mets, and what have you. So exciting to start your career there, and before my whole primary media career. Undertone, the company I work for now, has formats to help ads break through. And I think that's a key theme that ties into a lot of what we're talking about. And it's one of the reasons why this ties in for this topic.
Love it. I'm just thinking that on my last panel, I didn't even have anybody introduced ourselves. I just jumped in. So sorry, I'm in my head there. But my name's Scott Harkey, CEO of the Harkey Group. We're a very, very small boutique, independently held ad agency holding company. We've got about 5 agencies in our portfolio, anything from digital to social to film, strategy to a fully integrated agency, which is OH Partners. I've been in the industry, 20 plus years. I started on the media side of the business. Also have done a ton of sports. Actually worked on the Arena Football League when it was relaunching, and then it went out again. But so excited to be here. Sounds like a lot of media trends on this panel, and we'll try to provide value here.
Thank you, and you're being modest. It's no big deal. So why don't we start with fragmentation choices? So, there's so many options for people to consume media. I remember being at ESPN Disney when cord cutting started happening. And at that point it was 3%. And then it just fell off a cliff. And so now here we are. And so what are you seeing? What are you noticing on that front?
Yeah, it feels like a freight train that's not slowing down. It used to be able to reach everyone as an advertiser just by buying a few ads on broadcast television, and then you were good to go. And you still couldn't reach a Super Bowl size audience. This is amazing this week, but still you see the cord cutting creep up and creep up. Now there's more than half of America that can't see cable, no matter how much you spend on it, which is nuts. That doesn't mean that linear's dead or anything like that. It's still a fantastic way to reach an audience when you can get their attention. But it's actually the other half of America that I think is the hardest part that we don't talk enough about. So the people that have cable but they also like Netflix, and they also like Amazon Prime and HBO Max and all these other things that they're watching, some of which don't have any ads. And if they spend 3 or 4 hours binge watching the next really awesome show, then that's 3 or 4 hours that they're just not reachable. So a lot of those folks fortunately watch a whole lot of sports, including the NFL, so there are ways to reach them, and they have migrated a bit. But I think that fragmentation challenge is one of the reasons that gave birth to a couple of different levels of innovation that led us in. But that fragmentation is quite hard. How are you going to get to everyone if they're not there, if they're not where you're advertising? We heard from Tana at CKE earlier today talking about that challenge with understanding where their media dollars were going relative to where their audience was going. So a lot of brands are rethinking where that allocation is. I think that's a huge trend that's happening, and each company is making decisions and trying to rethink what is the best approach on here. Just like it's all changed. And I think I've certainly seen it among the brands that we work closely with. I don't know about Scott.
Yeah. Man, the media landscape is screwed up, honestly. And anyone that says they have it figured out, I'm going to call bullshit. Because, I think we're going back to the cable days where, we saw the rise of cable channels, which was getting really fragmented. And so we're seeing that now. I'm going back to impressions. I'm sorry. Like, I think the impression measurement scale is back. And I hate to admit it because you want to sound way more sophisticated and smarter to clients. But I'm really excited that we're seeing companies like Nielsen going up against ComScore. And there's now a universal currency, and I think it is impression-based, when you're starting to see programmatic digital billboards and we're starting to see programmatic on the internet. I'm really excited about connected TV finally at scale. I think we were living for a long time in two worlds where we had GRPs with linear, and then we had the connected world and the digital world with impressions. And now if you add like other channels like PR and social and influencers, which you have to get some sort of range of impressions. I love Anheuser-Busch, the way they do it. They go by impressions, like whether it's PR or influencers, like they don't give a shit. Like impression is an impression, and we can just target the best that we can. But I really think we're outsmarting ourselves in a lot of ways from a media standpoint.
I love the stance. Gonna talk to my CEO. So on that note, though, let's talk a little bit about connected TVs and connected devices and the growth of that, and how we're thinking about or should be thinking about that space. I remember when connected TVs first started to come out, it was, the scale was very small and people were like, I don't know. And then we jumped in head first. We didn't have a choice at that point as cable and linear started to decline-ish. So I would love to hear your thoughts and then go to Todd.
Yeah, certainly. And so I cheated a little bit, like I used to be like the biggest like media dork ever. And now I have way smarter people on our media side. So I wanted some notes from them. Our VP of media, Kim Bender, for anyone on the media side, she's just fantastic. And we couldn't be more excited about connected TV and how it is now more available at scale. So I mean, most of our clients that we talk to on a daily basis, from Virgin to Win to Disney, like it's connected TV is certainly, I would say, the biggest trend for us. As you see other, I would say, premier players get it more into connected TV, and now there's more options. So for a while, I think too, like agencies would be like, this is my programmatic digital partner. Like for example, like we love the Trade Desk, and we have programmatic traders at Trade Desk, and Trade Desk is tapped into now soon to be Netflix, but now we're testing other partners, and so I think more testing and more opportunity for more programmatic partners is certainly the trend. Where for a lot of times is like I'm a Trade Desk agency, like we do everything through Trade Desk, and now it's like, okay, wait a minute, like maybe there is a managed service that makes sense, or maybe there's direct. So it's like all over the board. If Disney's opening up inventory, like for connected, let's talk to Disney Plus, right? If Netflix is opening connectivity, maybe we're talking to Netflix direct, or maybe it's going through Trade Desk. So like I think the rules are all at the window of like, it seems like every couple of years what you said was like the rules now has changed. But certainly, I mean, I can't say connected TV enough, at least for us at our agencies.
Yeah, I'm seeing the same thing at Undertone. We're seeing such a shift towards connected TV, and And it makes a lot of sense, right? Connected TV is just as addressable as addressable TV without a lot of the drawbacks. You could actually have addressability in every impression to some extent. Being able to add data, being able to add real measurement, get down to the different metrics. I think we still have a long way to go on the measurement side. I don't think we're there, and I think there's going to continue to be a lot more innovation. But there's also a lot of experimentation, and through that, we're finding a lot of great successes out there. I also think the excessive economic challenges breed sometimes the best innovation in companies, and that is showing itself. You look at the Netflix was out in front as one of the only subscription services, and that's great. Then they got a lot of competition. Over time, they said they wouldn't, but here it comes. Now there's ad-supported Netflix, and that's a challenge for them, but gee, for viewers and for advertisers, suddenly there's a lot more high-quality inventory. That's great. HBO Max has inventory and all of these players, and then the rise of the FAST, the Plutos and the Zumos, and advertisers are noticing. If you look at, if you heard Fox's last earning call, they said Tubi actually drove more revenue than Fox Entertainment for the first time in their history. That wasn't expected, or at least by me. So you're seeing a lot of those type of changes, and I think connected TV enables you to do so many things that you couldn't do before. And linear TV still has its value. I'm not saying that one is better or another, but I think it has to be in all the above, because you can't get to the levels of effective reach for a lot of our brands. That if you want to play large enough, if your brand needs to get to a certain level of penetration, you need to consider a lot of different approaches, which I think Scott was referencing a little bit in his answer as well.
Yeah, it's a great point. As whenever we spend on OTT, it just works harder for us. And especially, this goes to the next question, next trend, is this term that we're consistently hearing, macroeconomic headwinds, and what that means for brands who have to think differently about their budgets and where they're spending. How should brands be thinking about adjusting their strategy based on that?
I'll take a swing at this one. I think there was so much opportunity the last 2 years in performance marketing. And I think the evaluations were getting so crazy for companies that there was just a very easy math problems for marketers. And we were pouncing on performance marketers, and users were equating to evaluations, and evaluations are creating to, more value for companies. And I think now mid and upper funnel activities more strategically are the name of the game. And so now where do you play, and what platform is going to be the most efficient? I think. And then how do you execute in that platform from an innovation standpoint? Like little things, like I think overlays of QR codes are really coming back. And so all these dollars are going to be like really working much harder, because I think the performance math problem, like you can't go to Instagram anymore and acquire customers at a return on ad spend that is appropriate anymore, right? Like that game is done. And so I think really smart bets from the right audience and the right target and multiple platforms, and really working more mid-funnel and upper funnel activities, not just low funnel. I think that's going to be the challenge for marketers as the economy tightens and as evaluations go not what they've been for a couple of years.
And look, that's a tough conversation to have when these brands have now built this muscle around performance, and that last dollar spent, last touch. And so as you think about mid and upper, which has become a bad word in certain
of course
circles,
the CFO's worst favorite words.
Oh my gosh. How should marketers be talking about the value of mid and upper funnel?
It's really challenging, but I think you can do a little bit of both. I still think there's more innovation to be done around attribution modeling, of course, kind of to your point. And I think having some really good analysis and really good like finance people on your marketing team. Like I'm seeing more and more CMOs having really sophisticated CFOs on their team to prove out financial analysis around mid and upper funnel attribution modeling that like is viable. And I think The smart CMOs, like I've seen, really put that into effect. But it's really hard, and I think you can do both. I think you can have conversions on mid-funnel, and I think you can prove out, some sort of attribution modeling that makes sense, that again is sellable depending on what size company you have. But it is hard. But I mean, I think the easiest argument is to go, the return on ad spend's gone. Like when Instagram and Facebook have gone from 7 billion to like 25 billion in ad sales in less than 3 years, like that machine is not turning out customers like it was. So I just think you can quite frankly say that just the math of performance isn't there. So we're going to have to pivot, and here's the attribution modeling that we have, and here's how we're going to continue to acquire customers, but it's just not going to be purely performance. I don't know if I answered the question, but
you did. And Todd, I have a specific question for you about this, and that's around measurement. You see brands using different tools. What tools are you seeing are the most effective?
Yeah, I think just first to dovetail off of what Scott was saying, yes, social is getting saturated, but this is the year that we're starting to see CTV as a performance platform. And that doesn't mean that brands are necessarily comparing one platform to another, because they're different. But if you can drive performance out of a new platform, the idea of driving performance out of an ad on television is not new. We used to call it DRTV, and it was fully preemptible. Okay, but it doesn't have to be, and it doesn't have to be the bottom-feeding, fully preemptible remnant inventory. We're seeing high-performing, we Undertone, my company, we're seeing high-performing inventory that's driving performance, the idea of what can you expect out of a CTV ad? And there's a lot of experimentation going on, but I think that aspect is compressing the funnel. So you can do awareness and still expect some other elements out of it. In the birth of digital, there were so many things you could measure. People said, wow, look at all these things. I'm going to optimize towards that. I'm going to optimize towards that. And we heard clicks, and suddenly people thought click-through rate was all of it, until we realized that 98% of the internet doesn't click, and the 2% that do have fat thumbs, and they come from the same demographic, and it's in the same category. So just because you could measure something doesn't make it the thing that drives outcomes for you. But that doesn't mean to throw away the baby with the bathwater. So we're seeing CTV. When we talk about the laboratory of innovation, that's a big piece of it. The other part, I think, that comes through is we were talking about impressions before, and I like the idea of impressions anywhere that Scott mentioned earlier. But what we're seeing is not just reach. Reach isn't good enough. It's effective reach. Mm-hmm. So maybe we've been asking the wrong question. Maybe the question we've been asking over time has been, how do I reach all of my audience? And maybe we should have been, how do I reach them in a way that they're engaged? Because right now we count impressions. This is perhaps a tangent that we don't have time for, but the way we count impressions right now on television is Nielsen, I think, kind of enough said. They have an approach on that. It was on the television. We can count it based on viewership. In digital, we think that we're so much better sometimes, but it's just an impression firing. That doesn't mean that you've actually made an engagement. So that is a challenge, and I think attention is becoming the new currency. There's a bajillion ways to measure that. There's some companies that do that literally, and there's other ways to talk about the engagement that you get from it. But not all impressions are created equal, and I think that's an element that we're going to see throughout 2023. We are seeing a bunch of different companies that are savvy, looking at it different ways and getting huge gains for their company if they just look at it slightly differently, instead of checking a box and saying, cool, we got to everyone, adding something to the mix, not throwing away their entire plan necessarily, but taking a piece of it and say, you know what, let's try this.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So we have one more trend. We talked a bit about attribution, so I'm going to skip that one and go to what everyone wants to do. They want to age down, and they want more diverse consumers. So, and specifically in sports, how are you advising clients on how to do that?
I'll take that one first. Let me think about it.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's a few ways. so we talked about fragmentation at the top, and that's a challenge, and we talked about attention after that. And I think these come together because there's no group that has less attention for what used to be the traditional 30-second spot than the youngest audiences that we're going after. And we've referenced that in a few different panels. How do you get them? So there's a few things. I think there's creative, innovative formats that are being used. And innovation doesn't have to come from digital. If you stick with an NFL example here, the NFL innovated this picture-in-picture that they're starting to roll out, and it was in the Olympics and college football and all these other areas, but it's happening during the action. So companies and broadcasters are seeing different ways to get someone's attention on there, and I think there's some groups that's harder and harder. We're well past the challenge of some people are trained to avoid commercials. It started with TiVo and DVRing, and then it became, well, it's non-skippable, but I don't have to watch. So that doesn't help our advertisers. But we're also seeing not just the format through, but we're also seeing different places. So traditional ads, it was always, where can I put my 30-second spot for video? But now it's, if you take something like gaming, where did young people go? Well, one of the places that they went was in gaming. That means esports, and for those of you who aren't as familiar, esports is professional video gamers playing in professional video game tournaments, and it's very surprising how popular it is. It's crazy, and this is terrifying to a lot of different marketers on the sports side, because as my nephew used to, if I look at his, we're not trying to target him, but there's a lot of kids that are growing up saying, my favorite thing to do in the world is to play Minecraft, and my second favorite thing is to watch people play Minecraft. Yeah. So how do we get them to cross over? Well, you're not going to just those people may be lost from your regular media mix, but nowadays you can advertise in esports. Nowadays you can put your ad inside the game. And you can do a variety of different approaches that are a little bit non-traditional, and we're seeing a bunch of them, and they're looking at emotional effectiveness and creative effectiveness with measurement studies with companies like System 1 and others that could actually take a look at that type of area.
Yeah, I think so. Really interesting, I think, viewpoint that I sit at, where I have one agency that's really known for casino marketing, casino gaming, sports betting, hotel hospitality, break and mortar. Like that's kind of their expertise. I have another agency, our digital agencies. They're really known for like video game, breakthrough creative, right, and launches. And the gamer is totally different than what you think, and I think there's a lot of assumptions on how to get a younger audience made by marketers, and even us looking at the wrong data and the wrong insights. I was in that category too. I made a lot of gaming assumptions that were completely off base, and I've had to retrain myself and learn a lot. And I do think professional sports teams and casino entertainment brands can really take a page out of the kind of the gaming industry book and really learn a lot about those audiences. To his point, I mean, there's just so much going on, to YouTubers that are, becoming famous, of people watching video games, to really, women 35, 54 are actually gamers. Like, people don't realize that. Like, you ever heard, of Farmville and all these games on the phone? Like, there's tons of people that actually game, and the amount of people spent gaming, whether it's on a device or on their phone, whether it's playing, video games or casino games, like, it's such a broad category, and there's so many subcultures of that category that I definitely think there's ways to create value and experience for younger consumers. I heard like all today about like experience. And look, like, there's not a brand out there that doesn't want to get, a younger audience and a more flow of an audience in, kind of that Procter & Gamble cradle to grave strategy. But like, I think the biggest mistake that I've made is there's some major assumptions within those categories. And I think I would continue to challenge brands and agencies on some consumer insights that they think they're onto that they might not be. Because again, as someone who plays Fortnite is completely different than someone who plays Minecraft. And the audience and people and influencers they believe in game by game is totally different. And that person's totally totally different than someone that plays slots. And the next person is totally different that plays Farmville on their phone. Like, these audiences are vastly different, and their age group varies between, 12 years old and 60 years old. So that culture, I think, is really at the forefront, where we're mixing brick and mortar experiences with mobile game experiences, and we're on all these different devices where we're watching TV, also at a game, also on our phone. And I think it really comes down to like that audience and that tribe and that insight with whatever game that they play. And if you are not fully speaking the language, you're going to get fried so fast. Like, it'll be like the littlest thing or the littlest tone. And so I see just a lot of mistakes being made in terms of trying to get younger audiences all the time, because some assumptions are being made about a gaming audience.
And bringing it into sports on that one, sorry, Kim, I was just going to say, you'll see it in sports broadcasts right now, and how broadcasts are innovating, not just with ad formats, but also with the Manning cast on ESPN. You'll see that concept. The LA Clippers created their own Clipper Vision, and they're creating their own version of that, and a whole group of their own content. So you're seeing this experimental. Thursday Night Football created multiple broadcasts, and I happen to like the one with the next gen stats littered all the way through it. Some people don't. They have both. You could now do this once you're in digital. So you're seeing those that appeals to different people. And I think that's an element that when you're running on broadcast television and you need to appeal to 15 million people for the NFL to be successful in that, I made up that number. But when you're able to split it into different broadcasts, you can appeal specifically to different audiences to pull them in, and suddenly there's an NFL Slime Time show that appeals for that brand to different groups. I think that aspect is helping draw in new people from different angles. And you'll see it also with creating your own content throughout this, with FanDuel creating their own network, and Sleep Number was talking about co-producing with Dallas Cowboys and other teams.
Yeah, the last thing I'll add to that, and then we can go to questions. One thing ESPN did really well when they were trying to figure out how do we recapture fans who left, is you had to redefine fandom. Everyone taps into sports differently, but they may not identify as a fan. So you had the game dayer, and that person showed up every game day and watched check stats. They were on Twitter, they were tweeting about it, they were watching it with their family. Then you had the story seeker, and those were the folks who liked the 30 for 30s. They wanted the storytelling around sport. You had the ones who just wanted, some cultural cred, so they only watched the big game, right? They didn't watch the season. So I think thinking through how are consumers identifying fandom for themselves. Number one, bet on women's sports. I will always say that. That's another way in. And the athlete. The athlete is the new social currency. It's no longer just about the league or just the team. It is about the athlete and what the empire they are building around themselves in film and TV and gaming and merch and all these other things. So this trend and this evolution of fandom and capitalizing on that, and understanding how younger consumers tap into sports, to your point about really understanding the insights around that, is really key.